Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody needs help sometimes, you know. What else can we do when we're feeling low? So take a deep breath and let it go. You shouldn't be drowning on your own. And if you feel you're sinking, I will jump right over into cold, cold water for you. And although time may take us into different places, I will still be patient with you. And I hope you know I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight. I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight. 'Cause we all get lost sometimes, you know. It's how we learn and how we grow. And I want to be with you till I'm old. You shouldn't be fighting on your own. And if you feel you're sinking, I will jump right over into cold, cold water for you. And although time may take us into different places, I will still be patient with you. And I hope you know I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight. I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight.
Come on, save me from a rocking boat. I just want to stay afloat. I'm all alone. And I hope someone come and take me home. Somewhere I can rest my soul. I need to know you won't let go.
You won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight. I won't let go. I'll be your lifeline tonight. I won't let go. I won't let go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, Leslie and Martine, for the beautiful
Yes,
music.
Leslie and Martine.
If you have not experienced Chance, I urge you to come on Friday night and experience it for yourself. How many of you in here are millennials? A couple, not very many. Yes, back up in the two. Yes. How many of you are boomers like me? Yeah, most of us are boomers. How many of you are Generation G? That's the generations before us, before boomers. Few. And I don't think we have any Ys or Zs in here yet. They're all in the back still. You know, one of the things that is being talked about in churches so much today is, where are the millennials? Why are they not here? Who are they? And we hear all the time, well, they're just not interested in church. They're just not interested in the things that we were interested in. And so I've been having conversations with some of our millennials and other millennials that I know, including my own daughter, and saying, who are you? What is different? Well, what is different for us in spiritual communities is that for the first time in modern American history, less than 50% of Americans attend church of any kind. And depending on what source you look at, among millennials, only 35 to 45 attend church regularly or identify as religious. Now, of course, churches want people to attend. Honestly, if there's no people, there's no church. And it really would be boring for me anyway to just stand up here and talk to an empty room. Actually, we did that for a year, remember? Yeah, we talked to a screen. It's just not as much fun. The traditional message of church, though, has been that you need us. In traditional Christianity, the message that I grew up with in particular is you need the church because you are a sinner, and God demands that you go to church. And if you don't, you'll go to the hot spot. Nope, not the hot. Oh yes, I'm talking to younger generations. Hot spot means hell, not a Wi-Fi place. Excuse me. That's not what we've ever believed in unity, and we have never taught that. But that's the traditional culture that is pervasive around us and has been for a couple hundred years at least. But I will be honest. Of course we want more people to attend. Why? Not because people need to be saved, for we don't believe that we ever did anything to be saved from. We don't believe you will go to hell if you don't attend. For me, it is because I believe that all of us, of any age, are spiritual beings, and we thrive when we are part of a spiritual, not a religious community. That is important to understand. We want to be. Every human being, I believe, wants to be part of a community that encourages individual expression, honors each person as they are, and works to raise the consciousness of the race. And among the biggest demographic of people leaving the churches are millennials. They are those who are born between 1980 and 1994, many of our own children. They are between 29 and 42 years old. And the number one answer that I received from millennials when I asked them, what is it about church that has turned people off, shocked and saddened me. And yet, it is a message that we all grew up with. They said, we are tired of being blamed for the mess the world is in. Actually, that's a little different, because many of us blamed our parents for the mess the world was in, not the other way around. But the one message that really saddened me was they are tired of being told they are unworthy. Not just religiously, but the pervasive message out there is that they are unworthy. Unworthy of what? These are our children and grandchildren. These are the people who are building the world that we are leaving. Not leaving physically yet. It's planned to stick around for a while. But who are they? They are indeed a different generation than many of us were. My generation and the generations before me generally followed the structure of the previous generations. There were certain expectations, at least if you were white and middle class. And those expectations were, get a good education, get married to a member of the opposite sex, have 2.5 kids, a house, a dog, or a cat, or both, or many of them, work at the same job for 40 years, and then retire. And yes, there are different experiences in every generation. There are people growing up now, and as there were in our generations, who didn't have the advantages that many of us did, and who lived in places where there were not the same opportunities or the same degree of safety or health or housing. And there were other paradigms that were different. In my generation, we had the hippie movement, the anti-war movement, the equal rights movement. We had a greater awareness of the rest of the world thanks to technology. But by and large, We knew what to expect and what was expected from us. That was good. But what is better and what is more exciting to me is that the human race is evolving and changing. You heard me talk a year ago about how I truly believe that there is a new species of hominid appearing on the earth. We are all Homo sapiens. But I believe that the younger generations are coming from a different spiritual level, a different level of evolution. And I use the term Homo agapian because they come more from spirit, from heart. And I do believe that is what is happening. The human race is evolving. And evolution is not always pretty. You know, our generation, my generation, and your generation, some of your generations as well, we watched as great changes occurred in the world. We watched as our entire economic system changed in the 80s and 90s. No longer could a household survive on one paycheck. No longer was buying and owning a home part of the American dream. Healthcare became out of reach for many people. You know, when I was a kid, everybody could go to the doctor pretty easy if you were white middle class, anyway. And sometimes the doctor came to you. That does not happen anymore. The overall quality of life in the modern world, in the first world, began to falter. And all of that, I believe, was a signpost of an evolutionary shift. My generation and the generations before mine, we had traditions to fall back on. We had routine. We had history. And prior to the millennials, the generations were proud of the hardships they had overcome, and rightly so. It was part of our identity. The Generation G, sometimes called the greatest generation, overcame 2 world wars, a Great Depression, and now 2 global pandemics. My generation has dealt with a world suffering from pollution and climate change. And no, we are not where we need to be. But I do know that each generation has contributed to the overall growth and the overcoming of the challenges that have gone before us. My generation was raised in a culture that glorified war. We believed in our country, and we did accomplish great things, as did the generations before, and as will the generations that are coming up. We went from the horse and buggy to the moon in 3 generations. That's a phenomenal evolutionary leap. We moved into an age of awakening to racial issues, to climate change, and have now moved into the information age and into an age that I call the connectivity age. Our millennials especially are connected on a global scale that most of us could never have imagined. And all of this is laying the groundwork for the next great evolutionary leap. So who are these millennials? What are they doing? How do they see the world? In my talks with them, I have learned that they have a heavy emphasis, not so much on the outer as much as on the inner, because they know that as we work on the inner, we see the solutions to solving the problems in the outer. They have great emphasis on psychological improvement, on personal growth and balance in their own lives. They question norms. I think every generation has done a little bit of that, but certainly the millennials are doing it on a far greater scale. They venerate activism. They embrace a startup mentality. They provide a voice. And when you look at them and you think they're just playing on their phones and tablets, and I know this because I've walked in on my daughter doing it, they are collaborating with people all around the world. They may be sitting there, in front of a restaurant or doing something on their phones, and you look over and they're working with other people around the world, either for employment or to create movements and possibilities. They're creating social organizations in ways that we could never have dreamed of. And they realize that employment models are changing. The days of working at the same job for 40 years are gone. That's not going to be a norm. So they speak from an entrepreneurial mindset, a creative mindset. And they may change what they do many times in their life, but they gather experience and knowledge each time. They value education, and not just institutional education, but education that is global and creative. And yes, they have their own agenda. Honestly, we did too. And they will get offended if anyone else thinks they can contribute or subtract from that agenda, especially if it is a person in authority. Well, I have to say our generation did that. They love to challenge social norms. And their idea of health includes wellness practices, not just not getting sick, but living life full of vim and vigor. Interestingly enough, they are much less likely than preceding generations to get angry or hateful, especially when they're told they have to. They just don't, yes. They have a love for humanitarian freedom, LGBTQ plus issues, freedom to marry, although they themselves are much less likely to get married and get married in a church. In many ways, as I pondered who this generation is, I began to see a connection to another person who changed the world between roughly 29 and 30, 33, 34. When this person was in his 30s, he too had a heavy emphasis on psychological improvement and personal growth. Although the terminology did not exist in his age. This person questioned the norms and provided a voice to those who didn't have a voice. He venerated activism. He embraced a startup mentality and started a whole new spiritual movement dedicated to education. He collaborated with a group of people from all different walks of life. He was able to make a living in a whole new way and never lacked for what he needed to bring his vision to fruition. He valued education, not just institutional education, but an education that was global and creative and grounded in spiritual principles. And he had his own agenda. He would not submit to authority figures in his culture nor in the ruling government. He loved to challenge social norms. His health practice included staying well, healing, not just not getting sick. And he was an adept healer. He was much less likely to feel anger and hatred than those around him. And as near as I can tell, he was never hateful, especially not when somebody tried to direct him to be. He had a love for humanitarian freedom that extended beyond his own demographic. And of course, you've probably figured out I'm talking about our teacher and way shower, Jesus. The truth about generations is this. Millennials, in many ways, are a lot different than we are. And in many ways, they are not so different from us. They inherit both the greatness and the problems of the preceding generations. But I do believe that they are leading us in a new direction and a new path. If you are familiar with spiral dynamics, how many of you are familiar with that? Not many? Oh, we'll have to do a class on that. Spiral dynamics is a theory and a model of evolution. And it shows that as we evolve, as we make these circles around the sun for thousands and thousands of years, we are evolving on a spiral that's ever rising higher. And the different spirals have different colors to kind of denote the energies of that. And so I believe that we are now, our children and grandchildren, our millennials, are moving into that green level, that green spiral. And that spiral is about moving into a consciousness of harmony, enriching the inner world, and therefore making improvements on the outer world. That spiral is about having an emotional connection to other human beings, not just in immediate families or communities, but globally. It's about accepting the other as he or she is. And that level of evolution likes to work together to stimulate development so that people can become who they truly came here to be. Really, when you think about it, the dream we have always dreamed, especially in unity, to empower people and support people to become who they came here to be. It is said that the sins of the fathers are visited even unto the 7th generation. And if that is true, then so too it must be that the blessings of the fathers are visited to the 7th generations. We are connected. We are one. But each generation is raising us to a higher vibration, a higher level of understanding. And sometimes the leap is big. And sometimes we look at it and we say, I don't understand. I don't understand the music. I don't understand how they communicate. We don't necessarily have to understand. We have to look and say, wow, look where the world is going. Some of you may remember or have heard this. It was written specifically about teenagers, but it applies to generations as well. The children today love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. They are tyrants, not the servants of their households. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents, chattering before company, gobbling up dainties at the table and cross their legs and tyrannize their teachers. That was written somewhere around 80 BC. It's attributed to Socrates, although there's no real evidence that he actually wrote that. But if we were to translate that today, it would be something like this. Today's young people are all into their tech and not doing anything of value. They are defiant, disrespectful, all talk and no work. They think they rule the roost and fail to help out. They have no respect for old people. They argue with their parents. They're on their phones when company is over. They live on fast food, which is not really true so much anymore. They burp and they fart. I didn't write this. And they give their teachers headaches. But the fact is, they are carrying the work to a new level. Think about this. We grew up being able to share our truths in unity with a room full of people. And a little bit outside the room through printed material and maybe a few recordings. Nowadays, I bet there's somebody in this room right now that is on their phone sharing some of this with people around the world. We recently had Ben and Michael share their stories about what unity means to them. And I looked this morning at how many people have seen it on Facebook. And I think Ben was like 350. Michael, you were right up there, right around that area. There's not 350 in this room. And I bet almost none of you in this room are the ones that saw that and liked it on Facebook. What's happening? What's happening? Our millennials and the generations that are coming after them are connected on a scale beyond what we could have imagined. They're spreading the message of empowerment, the message of truth, of who each individual human being is, the hopes and the dreams and the possibility that we may finally get to that place that we have talked about for 147 generations. That's how many generations it has been since the Buddha and the Christ. I believe we are finally starting to get that, our species, the human race. We're beginning to move into a generation that will live more fully in a spiritual way. And true spirituality is not about going to church every week. It's not about memorizing sacred scriptures. It's not about praying on a football field or in groups in parking lots. It's not about forcing your religion on others. True spirituality is about recognizing oneness, embracing diversity, including all people in your community, respecting all life, creating new and better worlds, and this is the most exciting, being unafraid to try new things, knowing that some of them may not work, and coming from a place of deeper love. Eric Butterworth, in his marvelous book, The Flow of Life, wrote this: "The wisdom of the world has conditioned us to act our age. But now is the time we must begin to act our youth, to act our experience in the flow of life." Sue Sicking wrote, "The new world will not judge generations by the years they lived, but by the maturity of their lives. And the new maturity, the full expression of the human being, will be the signpost of the new spiritual age." I believe our millennials are leading us to that new age. Reverend Donald Curtis wrote this: "Every age is the new age of its particular time, and every era has its prophets and teachers whose function is to waken us to the divinity within us." I believe, I hope, that maybe at last a generation is arising that produces not one or two prophets or teachers, but empowers everyone to be a prophet, a teacher, and a learner. So to our millennials here today, those who may hear this message in the coming days, we in Unity and myself want you to know one great truth. And this is true for all human beings. But today I want the millennials to really hear it. You are the light of the world. You are the salt of the earth. And you are created in the image and likeness of the divine. And above all else, you are worthy. Thank you. Namaste.
All right, we're going to feature Brian with his recovered amp. The police found that amp from the time when we had the, and he's going to use it.
Some sounds that have not been, to my knowledge, in this sanctuary before, but we couldn't do honoring millennials without a little bit of distortion.
Yeah.
And a song, and a song that I grew up with.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Show me where to look.
Tell me what will I find? What will I find? Lay me on the ground and fly me in the sky. Show me where to look and tell me what will I find?
shine down. Heaven, let your light shine down.
Give me a word, give me a sign. Show me where to look and tell me what will I find? What will I find? Lay me on the ground and find me in the sky. Show me where to look and tell me what will I find? What will I find?
Yeah. 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 Heaven, let your light shine down. Heaven, let your light shine down. Heaven, let your light shine down. Heaven, let your light shine down.
I'm gonna let it shine, I'm gonna let it shine. Every little light wants to shine on me. I said, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Every little light wants to shine on me. Shine on me, shine. Come on and shine.
Thank you, dancers.